2, 1.
Hi, this is Brian of the 2022 Mega Bowl champion Skybusters, and you are listening to the Hidden Oaks Overdose Football Fix with Josh and Gar.
Thank you very much, Brian. It is Wednesday, August 31st, 2022, 4:06 p.m. I am Garlic. That is Josh. This is podcast number 103. And, I don't know. I usually do a cold open. I'm usually a little more prepared than this. I don't know. We're still a little rusty, still a little preseason rust, but I figure we let, we go back to some of our old roots here. Walters, rock us in, pal.
Welcome to the Hidden Oaks Overdose Football Fix with your lovely hostesses, Garlic Johnson.
We're going to need to take a break here while I change my pants.
And Josh Mitchell.
Sitting here undefeated in everything I do, except fantasy football. No, I'm not allowed to handle crayons.
Not after last time.
Not after last time.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Garlic and Josh.
Woo! Here's the part where I say, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hidden Oaks Overdose Football Fix podcast. I am one of your lovely hostesses, the Garlic Johnson. We are joined, as almost always, by your other lovely hostess, the Joshua Mitchell. Josh, say hi to the folks out there.
Hi, folks.
Beautiful. All right. We've got a lovely Discord community if you'd like to join us. It's pretty cool. We've been chatting more and more as football season is upon us here. People are starting to get back into the thing. We have 2 people listening live in Discord right now as the podcast is being recorded. We also have an email address, hiddenoaksoverdose@gmail.com, or if you'd like to send us voicemails, I don't know how much we're going to do that this year, depending on what we do with our podcast, but anchor.fm/hoodpod is where you can leave us voicemails, and we always appreciate that as well. That's a beautiful website Josh has built, hiddenoaksoverdose.com. Segment start times, there probably won't be any for this episode because we're talking about Hoodpod draft grades, but and I always got to thank at Mr. Levi Oking, Jesus Christ, Josh. Levi Okie for the new branding he gave us last year that we only have utilized a little bit because we went away from video, and I don't know if we'll ever go to video. We'll see. Maybe next year. Not this year, though. Josh, how we doing, pal?
We're doing. Had the day off today. Went to the state fair.
The
Don't
Great
know
Minnesota
if I'd rather
get
have gone
together?
to work or not. Yeah, sure.
You
not
saying
a
it's
big
not
fan.
that great? Why'd you go?
Because my wife wanted to go, and I like to, be nice to my wife from time to time. She won free tickets. Only way she would have gotten me to go is if she won free tickets. So she probably made that up just to make it seem like she won them. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of spending $20 to walk with a bunch of people that smell bad and eat food that I could eat anywhere else in the world. It's state fair food. But Sweet Martha cookies, overrated, disgusting after 15 minutes.
Jesus, Josh, you are a grumpy McGrumperson, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to be. Yeah, I mean, it was an all right day. It was nice to get out, skip work, got to play. I got to hang out with Asher and Nikita, and that was kind of the only highlight of the state fair. But we could have done that in the backyard, and I would have been just as happy. Yeah, it was all right. Nikita lost her phone for a solid 15 minutes. She left it at a picnic table in the middle of the grandstand, and so we had to retrace her steps. I called it 9 times, and finally someone answered and goes, "Hello, lost phone speaking," and had a little bit of a panic attack. Thought the machines were taking over.
10 out of 10 quality from that guy or girl.
Yeah, but it was a man. But yeah, overall it's been a good day. I ate French fries, cheese curds, Tot Boss, and then an apple turnover that was inside. But yeah, I mean, food was okay. How are you, Gar?
Last week we were a little glum, as I'm sure the people could hear. We're doing a lot better this week. Shout out to anyone who's, I don't know, again, it's not like anything life-threatening or life-altering happened to me, but got a lot of love and support last week, so appreciate everyone. Shout out to my therapist as well. Yeah, I don't know. We're doing a lot better. We're excited for football, Josh. I think I said last week, if there's ever a time for a breakup in the year for me, this would probably be it. Doing podcasts twice a week, doing 18 fucking fantasy drafts. Not 18, actually. That's an exaggeration. But yeah, no, we're just excited. We're excited to watch, 15 hours of football a week, if not more. I'm fucking pumped, dude. I'm honestly fucking pumped for football to be back. And we're, 8 days away from Tampa Bay and... Is it Tampa Bay and Dallas again, kicking off the season? Or are they playing Sunday?
Yeah, I think they kick it off on Thursday.
I don't know. Someone plays a Thursday night game exactly 8 days from now, and I am fucking hyped. But with that, Josh, I mean, in the note? I mean, there is a note sheet. I think you just copy and pasted it from last year. We will mention the
Indubitably.
Skybusters for thankfully sponsoring us, but we don't have any content for the Fan Tasty Zone, so is there anything to do with it, or do we just skip it?
No, we just skip it.
All right, but
Thanks, Skybusters.
Thank you, Skybusters, for sponsoring that segment. And I don't, again, I'm not saying the Fan Tasty Zone will necessarily go away. The Skybusters will obviously sponsor something, but going to this new 2-pod format, we can't be, like right now, we would be 5 minutes into a 30-minute pod, and that's a lot of wasted time. So we're gonna have to really bare bones and see what we're gonna do if we're gonna do twice a week. So. Skybusters will always sponsor something, but this dead air that we usually fill the beginning of the pod with, we might not be doing the same thing. So, want to give the people one last taste of nostalgia before maybe some changes come upon us. But Josh, we are here to talk about the Hidden Oaks draft. The Hidden Oaks draft happened on Saturday. We had a lovely Walters join us on the Ranges Rain deck, sponsored by McGolden Light and Brian Nielsen, I guess. But the draft happened. It seems like there's always inclement weather on that draft Saturday, whether it's super windy or the last 2 years we've had rain. Luckily, my dad built that deck, otherwise we just would have been sitting in a stinky garage probably. But, just general thoughts on the day. We had, I think I said Walters joined us as our lovely sticker person. We had 10 people there in person, only 4 people virtual. One lives 9 hours away. One was allegedly working as a doctor. One had just had a baby. So pretty excusable things. Can't wait for the time we have all 14 people in person. But yeah, I mean, what are your general thoughts from the draft day? Obviously, we'll talk about the picks in a moment here, but just, leading up to the draft, the atmosphere, the people, how are you doing on draft day itself?
Yeah, it was good. I was looking forward to it. I'm happy I got the spot that I did, minimize distractions. A little upset I ate my M&Ms before we started the draft because it was kind of supposed to be that mid-draft snack to kind of get me over that hump. But I do feel like the sustained energy from the sugars in those crispy, crunchy cookie M&Ms definitely helped with my later rounds and my now that I'm looking at my later rounds, I don't think I have most of those guys on my team. But
we've already made a bunch of moves on the waiver wire, have we?
I think I'm at 7 moves or something like that.
What is wrong with you?
Stuff. But so overall it was great. Thank you, Ranch, for hosting. And thank you, Garlic, for letting us penetrate your house.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Ranch, the best host there is. Not even there. That's how you know you're a good host. You don't even have to show up. You don't even have to host in the flesh, Also, let me know if I sound worse than normal at times. I'm currently holding my mic. I don't know if I'll hold my mic for this whole time, but I don't have a desk in Range's house, so if anyone in the city's area has I'm not looking for like a big hefty desk, but almost just like a glorified table. If anyone has a spare desk or table, a desk height table, let me know. I need something for Range's house because right now I'm sitting on the floor at a coffee table with no mic arm or nothing, no desk to support me. So, anyways.
Interesting.
Do you just want to go down the line here, or do you want to say anything else about the draft?
Yeah, we can go down the line.
All right. Well, Josh, you have a more beautiful voice than I do, and I feel the air a lot the way it is. Garrett was the first overall pick, team number 1. He's changed his name to the Brave Little Taylor. A little teaser there. What do we think about Garrett's draft? How'd people grade him when we got here?
Yeah, he drafted J.J. Taylor with the first overall out of New England, who got cut. Jonathan Taylor couldn't go wrong with the first one. Al gave him a B- grade. The football guys gave him an A- grade. Do you want me to just keep going down the list until?
Well, yeah, I guess I didn't know if you wanted to go down. I mean, you're not going to list off all 14 players probably for all for all 14 teams, but
that's why we did the faves and the knaves. But in the pure thing that you had done, You sent out a text, less than 24 hours ago, or just over 24 hours ago, about us ranking our draft or our league's draft 1 through 14, and then averaging them out to give the overall. Garrett had a respectable 4.5 average. I don't know how many results came in. If it was only 2, yikes. If it was 3 or 4, not maybe, not too bad. But how many? If you want to give me a number.
Well, we're not going to get a number. We're just going to say that 4.5 is respectable. So obviously the lower numbers are better. You want to be ranked higher. That was second best among the league. So, we're not going to say how many people did or did not, because I don't want to, I don't want to ruin the data integrity here. People need to know that everything we're giving out is straight facts, Josh, regardless of the, the end number of the survey. Mr. conducted surveys before. We don't need to know the population of the survey. Just know that, people did submit answers. Plural people.
Okay, yes. The researcher in me wants to know that number, but the podcast truther in me knows that we did over 1,000 simulations on our own time to incorporate. So
obviously,
perfect. Yep, he was the second overall. My favorite pick that he had made was probably Tyler Boyd in the 8th. Not bad for a wide receiver 3 on the team. It's a high octane offense. And it'll be nice to supplant Marquise Brown, who was my Nave pick, because I don't think he's going to do anything.
You don't think he's going to do anything? Like literally nothing? Talk about that.
I don't know. Not a big fan. I don't know. We talked about Marquise Brown as kind of the avoidable guy just after being traded. It's a new offense. Kyler needs to study because he can't read. Marquise Brown gets arrested for driving too fast, and so we'll see. It looks like he just kind of took the next guy in line because there's 3 wide receivers, the 4 picks before him. But I would have gone with someone like Amon-Ra St. Brown or Rashad Bateman, Thielen, Robinson, Godwin, any of those guys over him. And they were all taken after Marquise Brown.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess I've been fading Brown as well. I guess I don't know. I don't know that I want any one receiving person in Arizona, but as far as we're going with the yay, you did the faves and the naves. I did the yays and the nays. The G yay for Garrett's team. I mean, Zeke. I've been talking up Zeke a lot this offseason so far. Getting him at the beginning. See, the one thing I was really curious about was I know that quote unquote, a lot of people in this league don't do research. Most people didn't even know their draft position coming into the draft. I had to remind them as we were filling out the stickers on the board. So take that with what you will. But I thought I was curious about this in a league of a lot of casual fantasy football players, where Zeke would go just because the name recognition is so high. But people really kind of stick to that cheat sheet. So Zeke did end up falling to the 3rd. And I love Zeke in the 3rd, especially in 14-person league. I think Zeke's being faded too far. I think Zeke's going to be great this year. I wanted one of the best 3 tight ends, but if Zeke would have fallen to me at the 3-7, I would have, I might have just jumped off the deck to not have to decide that. But I really like Zeke for Garrett. And then Nay, I don't like Madison. Obviously, Zimmer's gone. It's not, not a scenario where Dalvin's going to get 28 carries a game, but I don't think Madison's going to be fantasy relevant at all. And you just don't want that clogging up your bench. So I don't like Madison for Garrett. But yeah, B- from Al, A- for the football guys. So overall, people are pretty positive on Garrett's team. So unless you have anything else to say, Josh, I will move on to Hammer in the second draft
keep
position.
Going. All
right, Hammer still team name Catch-22. Still drafted Christian McCaffrey in the first round this year. He got an A++ from Al. Audio Al, also shout out to him. He's in the audience now. He got a B+ from the football guys. So a little bit of discrepancy there between, Al and the football guys. Is Al a football guy or is Al just a guy? Is Al a jag? Who knows? But between the peer rankings here, Hammer got an 8.5 average ranking, which was best for 9th in the league. I mean, 8.5 doesn't sound that bad. 9th in the league doesn't sound terrible, but it is bottom half of the league. So people are saying your fringe playoff team probably outside looking in. As far as yays and nays, no offense to Hammer. I know Hammer and I were having a little back and forth on draft day, and he wasn't even there in person to face me like a man, but there was no one I loved at the draft position for Hammer. Like, I think Christian McCaffrey's fine, Jerry Jeudy's fine. Like, all of his picks were fine. I don't see like any slam dunks. Can't believe you got that guy at that pick or that round. So I don't think Hammer's team is bad. Just no one that I was like, wow, I can't believe you got this person there. And then my nay would be Miles Sanders. Whoever was going to take Miles Sanders, I think we made the comment during the draft, it was Nikita last couple of years. Miles Sanders has just disappointed everyone who's ever drafted him. I hate Sanders this year. I've hated Sanders for years. He's just not a fantasy asset you want. Even if it is Hammer's 4th running back, why take him? He has no upside, and he'll just sit on your bench. So that's who I hated. What do you think about Hammer's draft, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see the value in St. Brown in the 5th round, especially in a 14-team league. He was easily one of the low 20s receiver taken, but last year he finished strong. and that was still with Goff at quarterback. So I think there was a stat out there that he had, astronomical numbers for the last few games of the season. So they're hoping that they roll over. If he does, pretty good value in the 5th. Like you, I was not a big fan of the Sanders pick. Kind of ripped him for that. Nikita ripped him for that, which was funny. I put Dobbins as my knave just because coming off the injury, he already had 2 running backs. And then, he knew he wouldn't pick again for 20-some picks. And so he just left it without, a solid wide receiver. But, he did get Judy and then St. Brown, like I said. But, having a Pittman or a Waddle in there probably would have made his team a little bit more stacked, in my opinion.
All right, bring us on to the number 3 team, Josh. In that third draft position, what do you got for Derek?
Derek, straight cash homie. He was given a B from Al and an A- from the football guys. So a little bit more, not necessarily discrepancy, pretty close there. But among the peer reviews, he was given an average of 9.75, which is the 11th spot in a 14-team league. As far as his first pick, he took Eckler with the 3rd overall. And then as far as my favorite pick, he had Sutton in the 4th round. I thought that was pretty solid value, especially when it's going to be a better offense with Russell Wilson hucking the ball up over the mountains. My knave pick was Michael Carter, Jets running back. Enough said. What do you got for us?
All right, looking at Derek's team, the straight cash homie. I really liked the Sutton pick as well. I mean, I didn't want to try and do too much overlap with you if I could help it, but there wasn't really any other yay picks I liked a lot. I was gonna say Darren Waller in the 5th. Not to fade you from taking him in the 2nd last year, but I mean, he was the 5th tight end off the board. I think that's pretty fair and pretty normal. If anything, just as like an overall draft note, I thought tight ends and quarterbacks would go a lot earlier because they have historically in this league, but I don't know if they were just further down in the overall rankings and people weren't looking at the positional charts this year. They were just looking at the top 300, but overall, I thought tight ends and quarterbacks were pushed down a lot further than they were. I remember them going like 1st, 2nd round, like definitely a lot of 2nd round action last year that we didn't see this year. Anyways, back to Derek's team specifically, I like the Sutton pick. And then as far as my fade picks, I'm going Rashad Penny. He is projected to be the starter. Ken Walker's coming off COVID, but Rashad Penny has just never really worked out. He had a handful of games last year. I know I don't want to hear about in the chat, Al or whoever else. Rashad Penny did put together a string of games last year with Chris Carson absent all year, but Rashad Penny's just never been reliable. People like that I fade. I can't do it. So for that reason, I faded Rashad Penny for Mr. Schultz. And I don't agree with the hate that you gave Michael Carter, especially for his 4th running back, but that's just me personally. Moving on to the other Schultz brother, Wilbert. I'm thinking he took Chubb in the 2nd round just so he didn't have to change his team name. He still remains the hot Chubb time machine. And I think, as a personal note, I think I'm going to kick myself for ending up taking Saquon Barkley coming back in the 2nd round versus Nick Chubb. We'll find out. But so shout out to Wilbert for getting, I think, a lot of good value in Chubb all the way at the 4th to last pick of the 4th round. But talking draft grades, Al gave him a B. The football guys also gave him a B. So here, Al and the football guy was perfectly in sync, giving Wilbert's draft a B. And I think we've been saying the 1st round picks every time. Wilbert took Dalvin Cook 4th overall. As far as the peer rankings go, Wilbert got a 2.5 average ranking from all the league members that submitted the survey. And that was best. That was the best in the league. Number 1 overall for Wilbert. So among your peers, Wilbert, at least in this league, you are ranked number 1. Picks I liked, my yays and nays. I've been high on Bateman all year. I know I sound like a broken record for the people who talk to me a lot. Not good content for people who listen to me a lot, but I've been high on Bateman. I love the Bateman pick. Hollywood Brown has a lot of hype coming out of that Baltimore offense last year. Not that they have a lot of great receiving accolades in that super run first offense, but Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews were the top 2 last year. Hollywood Brown is gone, so that number 2 receiving option, maybe the number 1 receiving option, depending on how much you like Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman is going to feast this year. And so to get a wide receiver like that in the 5th round, I think is absolutely insane value. And then George Kittle was my nay pick. George Kittle, obviously super talented tight end. I would hear arguments that George Kittle, just looking at talent alone, not necessarily production, but just talent, George Kittle might be the most talented tight end in the league. but I just don't think he's going to produce this year. I think we're going to see a lot of regression from Kittle, unfortunately, and so I do not like Kittle as a tight end in fantasy this year. Josh, what do you think about Wilbert's team?
I wrote Chubb down. I was a big fan of that pick. I kind of, I debated on taking him in the at 2-3, but then I went with somebody else. Like Chubb's value at that spot for sure, definitely up there on that. And so, but my knave for Wilbert was Kadarius Toney, third wide receiver. So, potential flex, but not a big fan of. I mean, there was rumors that he didn't even show up to camp. He was kind of frustrated, not doing so hot, and he could have probably taken a flyer on somebody else instead of him. He has a talent if he's healthy and if he actually wants to play, but it's just kind of a volatile situation. It sounds like, so not a big fan of that pick.
All right,
moving on to Jesse in the 5th slot. He took Derrick Henry with his the 5th overall pick. As far as my favorite, I'm jumping ahead of myself. He's I need more help, which we know that we've known that for a while. And so Al gave him an A. Football Guys gave him a B-, so a little bit more of a discrepancy there. And then amongst the peers, Jesse was an average of 11.5, which is a 13th out of 14. So not a lot of us liked his grades. My favorite pick of his, though, was going to be Khalil Herbert in the 13th round, the second string or the RB2 in Chicago. Not bad value. He did play some last year with Tariq Cohen getting hurt. He showed that he has the ability to take over the lead role too when Montgomery was out. So I do think that that's a solid pickup for that late. Even if he doesn't play him, it's nice to have that handcuff. My no pick, I had Moore. I can't find DJ Moore with the 2nd round pick. Kind of a head scratcher when there's guys like Nick Chubb, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen on the board still. Hell, I'd even take Pittman, Zeke, AJ Brown over him. And so, well, maybe not AJ Brown, but so DJ Moore in the 2nd was kind of a head scratcher.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to sit here and throw a bunch of shade at Jesse. He already got a bunch of flack draft day, but I'm not saying DJ Moore's a bad receiver. He's been a solid receiver year in and year out, but it's just I don't know. Maybe I'm whoring too much on name recognition at this point. DJ Moore is definitely an under the radar guy compared to all these others, but Mike Evans and Keenan Allen. I don't know. I don't think I could have taken DJ Moore before either of those two, but maybe Jesse knows something that none of us know. Jesse is a champion, a former champion in this league, which is something I cannot say. So my G-Nay pick was DJ Moore as well. My yay pick, again, I went kind of similar to you. I like Raheem Mostert all the way down in the 12th round. It's obviously a flyer pick. If it doesn't work out in the first 4 weeks, Jesse's probably going to cut the guy. But, he follows Mike McDaniel from the 49ers to Miami. Raheem Mostert had a lot of success when he was healthy and available on the field for Mike McDaniel in that, I don't want to say rush first offense, but, a lot of rushing success of that 49ers crew. And so Raheem Mostert, super high upside, super high ceiling, and so if that works out, that could be a slam dunk pick for Jesse. And so maybe he's cut by week 4, or maybe Jesse got a diamond in the rough there. So I would like Raheem Mostert for Jesse in the the 12th round. So moving on to Nikita's team here. All right, so Nikita, I love Nikita very much. The 6th overall draft pick, she takes Cooper Kupp. Well, that's fine and well. Nikita has a long history of not picking a team name in this league. She has historically been Team Mitchell, I think, since the beginning. I think she was maybe Team Munker, and then when you guys got married, she switches to Team Mitchell. That might have been her only, patent pen or not.
No,
patent pending.
She was the Dak Knight Rises one year.
No,
was she? A little bit. 2 weeks, yeah.
Either way, let's go with the copyright. I don't want to get any copyright claims here, but the quote unquote team name update. Nikita hasn't had a lot of them over the years, okay? But she is now this year the Kirk Covids, and so how do we feel about that team name, Josh? I'm sure you're going to support your wife, but the Kirk Covids, I remain unimpressed with that team name. I applaud her for changing her team name. A for effort. Way to not be Team Mitchell. The Kirk Covids, Josh. Let's grade her team name before we talk about her team.
I do think her team is better than that team name, but I do know that that's just a filler. She has another one in the hopper that she's going to change it to that is better.
Okay.
So But yeah, I had suggested Pollard greens, but she said that was overdone. And yeah, Kirk Covids is kind of a stretch on Kirk Cousin. But she wanted to point out Kirk's got COVID a lot.
Two times he's tied for you, Josh. You and Kirk are tied on the
win that race.
You guys are tied on the COVID leaderboard. Anyways, getting into Nikita's team, we've talked a lot there, but Nikita, I do want to recognize you changing your team name. I appreciate you coming on the team name bandwagon with the rest of us, but I know you can do better than the Kirk Covids. Getting into the draft grades here, Al and the football guys, again, in complete agreement here. They love Nikita's draft. They both gave her an A. Not an A+, but an A. And the peers love Nikita's draft too. Her overall average from anyone who sent in the rankings was a 4.5 out of 14, so that's pretty good. And that's best for third best in the league. So Nikita only behind Willie and Garrett. So shout out to Nikita for having a really good draft, pretty much by everyone. The Yay, I really love George Pickens. George Pickens just seems like he's a guy. He's putting a lot of highlights out. It seems like whether it's Trubisky or Pickens or Mason Rudolph, any of the quarterbacks that are going to be throwing to George Pickens, it seems like they really have a lot of good chemistry already, and it seems like Deontay Johnson's already getting banged up. It seems like it was a minor injury. Chase Claypool is a question mark. George Pickens has a chance to be a starting wide receiver for Nikita every week, and to get him in the 12th round is incredible, so I love George Pickens for Nikita. Pick I hate for Nikita was T. Higgins. Of course, T. Higgins got me to the championship last year. If Jeremy listens to this, he'll say fuck T. Higgins out loud just as he hears me say the name. I don't think T. Higgins is a good value in the third round, so no shade to Nikita. I'm sure that's where he was ranked, but I would have much preferred Mike Williams, Deontay Johnson, or Jalen Waddle over T. Higgins in the third, so no shade to Nikita personally, I guess, but I just don't like that pick. I don't like the ADP on Higgins this year. So that's how I feel about Nikita. Josh, how do you feel about Nikita's team?
I like it. I mean, that her team is one that, on the drive home when we're kind of looking through them or reading through them, I did like her team kind of just, she just played it not safe, or she played it safe for the most part and then took the flyers at the end. So I think I had her when we did the peer thing. I think she was 2 or 3 on my list, but I like that Chase Edmonds pick. I think Jeremy, or somebody said it during the draft. Pretty insane value to get a starting running back in the 6th round of a 14-team league. Right. And so Chase Edmonds is, he's the projected starter in Miami. I mean, if not, she took Cooper Kupp first, or she took Aaron Jones in the second starting running back there. He has a lot of value in the PPR leagues as well. And then she followed up that Chase Edmonds with Tony Pollard, who is the other one that I was kind of debating on as far as a favorite pick, because there was pretty much a 50-50 split in Dallas last year, and Pollard is the better pass catcher in that offense. So who knows how that's going to go. I do like the Pickens pick as well. My least favorite pick, though, D'Ernest Johnson. Couple different reasons. First, Walter suggested it, said that he was a very solid pickup, when in reality, D'Ernest Johnson is the 3rd running back on that roster, and is only useful if there's an injury or 2 ahead of him. He put it together some pretty good games when Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb were out, but didn't do a whole lot when they were in. So it's 13th round, so if that's where your Nave and your Nay pick is, that's great. But that's not. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the D'Ernest Johnson, even though she could have her team name be D'Ernest Hemingway, and overall like their team. Moving on to the Jefferson Starships, we've got Garlic Johnson himself, first overall pick, Justin Jefferson. And after that, nobody else. No, overall, Al gave him a B-. Football guys gave him a C+. Peer review, he had an 8.25 average, which was 8th place. I believe that's exactly where I had put you in our rankings. Overall, I liked your Darrell Henderson pick. He has the opportunity to, have a solid season for the Rams because they do run multiple running backs. As far as a no pick, my Nave, Darnell Mooney, just because I drafted him a lot last year and he didn't do nothing for me. But then he was also your 4th wide receiver, and you took him in the 6th, and you didn't have any running backs. And obviously, you wouldn't take Miles Sanders, but I would think that someone like Chase Edmonds, Cordell Patterson, Antonio Gibson, you took Melvin Gordon in the next round. There's still some running backs out there that I probably would have taken over Darnell Mooney if I had the 3 right wide receivers you already had. But yeah, what do you think of your team?
Well, Josh, I know I was saying this a lot during the draft. I fucking hate my team. I don't know, dude. I'm usually a running back heavy kind of guy, and in terms of like picking my draft position, I probably should have thought about that more. Either going early and then getting a really good running back and then like an okay running back, or going like I don't know if I've ever gone receiver in the first round in this league, so it just really threw me for a fucking loop, but I wasn't ready for it. And so, yeah, I don't know. I was debating on Saquon and Chubb, and then just every round after that, like I came into the draft knowing I wanted a top 3 tight end, and then so when Andrews and Kelsey went in round 1 and 2 to the Canup min, I was like, all right, we got to pray for Pitts in the third because I wasn't going to take Pitts in the second. I got him, but after that, just every draft pick when it was my turn, it was like I did not like the value of the running backs there compared to the comparable wide receivers or whatever other position was on the board. So I ended up kind of going. I didn't go 0 RB if you take Saquon in the second, but I just kept avoiding running backs because I just didn't like the value compared to the other people available, and I probably shot myself in the foot in the end. Should have reached on at least one other running back, but my favorite pick was Pitts. I think Pitts is going to be a great tight end this year. I don't care if Marcus Mariota is the starting quarterback. Pitts is going to be probably the number 1 target in that offense, and so even if it's a bad team, we've seen people on bad teams have plenty of fantasy success. Pitts will be one of those this year. He was a top 5 tight end last year with only 1 touchdown. He'll definitely have more than 1 touchdown this year, just based on what statistics should be. So my least favorite pick was probably Elijah Moore. Again, talking about reaching on a running back at some point, I probably should have taken a running back there or a quarterback there, or I don't know. It just seems like that 5th wide receiver probably is not something I should have done. I don't know. I'm not a fan of my team. Maybe I'll have more success. Maybe I'm just being too melancholy on my own team. But I came to this draft really wanting Kirk Cousins after getting Jefferson. I wanted the Jefferson-Cousins stack. Nikita sniped me there. Nikita sniped me with Tony Pollard. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like my team, to be honest. So we'll see if I make the playoffs. But yeah, I don't know. I'll just move on, Josh. I've been rambling a lot here. Moving on to Eric's team. He was the 8th.
Well, I have one thing to add here, and the reason Nikita's Kirk COVID name is a little bit of a stretch and everything is because she panic put it because she knew you wanted Kirk Cousins and she knew the podcast was today, so she did that just for you, buddy.
Just a nice little extra flame. Well, Nikita, I love you too. Moving on to Eric here. I need to be a little more succinct with my thoughts. Eric was the 8th overall position. He took Jamar Chase. So we had 5 running backs go and then 3 receivers go. The top 3 go. So Jamar Chase was Eric's 8th overall pick. He is the team name though, running up that hill. Not the worst team name. I appreciate him putting in the effort. Running up that hill. Probably could be better. Go Joe Burrow was a pretty good one last year. I gotta give Eric a lot of credit for his teaming last year. But talking about grades here, Al gave Eric a C+, but the football guys gave him an A. So a big discrepancy here between Al and the football guys. As far as the peer rankings go, he got a 4.75 average rank from his peers, which was best for 4th overall in the league. As far as my yays and nays, I love the Chris Godwin pick. I think Chris Godwin in the 5th round is good value. He's a little bit banged up, but he's going to be a stud receiver when he's in there. So I think, sweet value for Eric there. And then my nay pick, Jacoby Myers. That New England offense looks to be absolute garbage. So, I mean, again, like you said earlier about Nikita, if my nay pick is all the way down here, and what is this, the 10th round? Yeah. I mean, good for Eric having my least favorite player of his in the 10th round, but I think Jacoby Myers, just pretty low upside compared to some other people he could have got there. So that's what I think about Eric. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I liked his hill pick of the 2nd, so he went receiver. And some people would probably, gasp at that, but it's a PPR league. Tyreek Hill is fast. He showed off in that last preseason game. He still got it, even with Tua. He's been talking Tua up, but he was the 8th wide receiver off the board. Got him in 2 in the middle of the 2nd round. Not a bad deal. So he's going to get his. He's got to stay healthy. And but yeah, I do like his team. My least favorite pick was Ken Walker. He's coming off hernia surgery. He's a rookie. Seattle is trash. And so I think that there were other individuals that have taken over Ken Walker. If this were a dynasty league, that wouldn't be too bad of a pick. Probably should have gotten number 2 overall if it was a dynasty league. But he's, he got taken in the 9th, so it's not like he's going to crack the starting lineup a whole lot, if at all. But yeah, those are my 2 faves and knaves. Moving on to Jeremy, Mr. You Can Do That himself. He took Najee Harris with the 9th overall pick in this draft. Al gave him a B+. The football guys gave him a B- for Swerve and Irvin. By his peers, he was ranked an average of 9.75, which was good for the 12th slot. My favorite pick of his was the Colts defense. 6th, 7th defense off the board. But my knave was probably the rest of his team. So, you look at his team and, okay, Deontay Johnson in the 3rd isn't too bad with the number of wide receivers off, but then he took Chase Claypool in the 8th. It's like, okay. He took Irv Smith in the 6th, which we just absolutely belittled him for. But then Damian Harris, he's like, I shouldn't have taken him. He's a fumble machine. Locked it in anyways. Jarvis Landry, I'm not a big fan of, especially, not a big fan there. Amari Cooper, not a big fan. I don't know. It's going to be, I think it's going to be tough sledding, but we said that last year about Brian's team and look what happened. So he does have some guys that are probably going to carry him some weeks though.
Yeah, I definitely don't have the same hate for Jeremy's team that you have. Obviously, I don't know if you thought, no one knows what was going through Jeremy's head when he took
mine
Irv
isn't
Smith
necessarily, mine's not necessarily hate so much as it is kind of like yours with Hammer. I don't think that he, as far as his like good picks, I think that some of the players are, taking respectable places, but as far as just kind of the Irv Smith in the 6th kind of put a nasty taste in my mouth for the rest of that draft.
Sure. Again, it seemed to be in his mind that he had to draft his starting lineup first. Going 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a quarterback, and then a tight end. He forgot about the bench for some reason. I don't know what was going on in Jeremy's head, but he was not with it fully. Anyways, but I did like a pick. I thought Kenny Gainwell, for all the hate I give to Miles Sanders, obviously that means someone has to have some running success in Philadelphia, and obviously Jalen Hurts runs a lot, but I think Kenny Gainwell can be a big beneficiary of that. So Kenny Gainwell in the 10th round, I love that for Jeremy. And then I kind of threw some shade on Chase Claypool earlier. As the 3rd wide receiver, who knows how often he'll come on that starting lineup other than bye weeks. So I don't know. And Chase Claypool just seems like a guy who's just not going to succeed the way he should. Like, a lot of talent, just seems like he's not going to put it together for some reason. So that's what I think about Jeremy's team.
He's not going to go in on a bye week because all 3 of his top 3 wide receivers have a 9 bye week. That's
a bold move, Jeremy. Jeremy, if you want to trade me one of your good running backs, I'll trade you one of my good wide receivers. And then that was another reason I kind of went wide receiver heavy. I was like hoping not a lot of trades happen in redraft, but maybe I can trade one of my receivers for someone if they all work out. Anyways, moving on to Brad here. Brad was in the 10th draft spot at a 14. He took Alvin Kamara 1st overall. Josh, you're probably disappointed he didn't do some sort of duck joke with his team name, but he did go with What'll They Do Next as his team name. As far as draft grades go, Al gave him a C+, and the football guys gave Brad a B. As far as peer rankings go, his average rank of the peers was 6.5, which is best for 6th overall. Good for you, Brad. Yays and nays picks here. I think Alvin Kamara, 10th overall, is pretty good. Obviously, if he doesn't get suspended. But my real yay was Nyheim Hines. Again, it seems like you want to talk about running backs who eat up PPR points. That should be Nyheim Hines times a million. They released Phillip Lindsay. I don't know who would be the second, probably 1 to 2, one and two down back is what I'm trying to say. Probably a better way to say that. But first, early down back over behind Jonathan Taylor, but Nyheim Hines, big 3rd down back, big PPR guy. So great for Brad there to pick him up in the 8th round. And then as far as hate goes, Brad took Kelsey in the 2nd round. Higbee's a trash tight end. Maybe Brad just really wanted a backup tight end. I don't know. But Kelsey, if Kelsey gets hurt, Brad's tight end position is going to be fucked anyways. I don't think he needs to roster or bench a second tight end. So I'm not normally one to hate on 2 tight ends. Like, if you wait on tight end, throw a couple darts, hope one sticks. But with taking Kelsey, Brad did not need to take Higbee there even if it is the 12th round. I don't care. Brad could have tried to take some other high upside guy. So I hate Higbee just from football strategy, and he's also a bad fantasy player. So what do you think about Brad's team, Josh?
Yeah, I like it. As far as my favorite pick of his, I thought, he did solid. Alvin Kamara was kind of a risky pick just because of that suspension that might come, although it sounds like it might not be until next year now. But my favorite pick of his was DJ Chark in the 10th. People forget that he was a top 15 wide receiver before he got hurt, and that was in Jacksonville. Sure, he's going to Goff land, but he's a big body guy. And, if they do throw the ball, spread it around, Amon-Ra St. Brown isn't going to catch it all. And so DJ Chark should get his. And so who knows? So I did like that pick. My least favorite, my knave, probably Mahomes in the 4th. So we mentioned quarterbacks lasting a while. So it's probably about where his ADP is, but we've already kind of discussed that Mahomes is without Hill. We'll see how he does there. But he does have the Mahomes-Kelsey stack, I realize now. So who knows if they're still on the same page, and that'll work out great. If people are going to start targeting Kelsey a little bit more frequently and Kelsey's age starts to show, then could be in for a rough time with those two. Moving on to the 2021 Hidden Oaks champion, we've got Skybusters, a.k.a. Brian. One with a very unique draft strategy to get the number 1 tight end off the board and the number 1 quarterback off the board in the first 2 rounds with Mark Andrews and Josh Allen. Al gave him a C, and football guys gave him a C+, but as we know, last year those grades don't matter. As far as the peers go, he averaged 9.25, which was 10th in the overall rankings. My favorite pick of his was somebody that I swore at him about because I was going to take him at the very next pick, and that was Dameon Pierce, who has apparently played good enough to get Marlon Mack cut. But Dameon Pierce is the starting running back there. He got him in the 7th round. Not a bad value there. My least favorite pick for him, though, was Juju as his number 1 wide receiver. I don't think Juju is the number 1 wide receiver on that team even. Yeah, I don't know. He's got.
I think he is. Who's the number 1 receiver in Kansas City?
Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Come on now.
All right.
But then Alan Lazard in the 6th as well. So his wide receiver situation is going to be a little bit sketchy because did Kenny Golladay even make the team? I guess that was the 11th round, so it doesn't matter. So Gar, what do you think about Brian's team?
Yeah, we say it last year. I think Brian got a lot of shade last year. Shout out to Walters asked me to bring this up, or not asked me to bring it up, but Walters was curious about himself, so shout out to Walters, who has now come into the audience here. Walters gave Brian the absolute bottom draft grade last year, and that's why I think Walters did not contribute draft grades this year. He said he didn't want to be that wrong, I think was something he said. I don't know. Maybe I'm misquoting Walters. I don't want to put out misinformation, but yeah, it seems like every year people fade Brian, and every year Brian makes the playoffs, so he seems to know something we don't know, or maybe he sticks so true to the rankings that he just ends up being right more than us other people who just kind of shade people for things outside of football. But I don't know. As far as Brian's team, I love the Olave pick. I think Chris Olave is going to be a pretty good receiver. I really like the Saints this year. I think Michael Thomas is going to eat. They don't have a good tight end these days, so Chris Olave is going to be next in line to eat after Thomas. So I really love the Chris Olave pick for Brian. Probably would have taken him myself had I not gone so wide receiver heavy early on. I hate the Kenny Golladay pick. I don't care if it's the 10th, 11th round. Kenny Golladay has proven himself to be absolute garbage. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know what else Brian does with that pick. Again, if I'm hating on your 11th round pick, 10th round pick, whatever it is, you're probably doing fine, but I hate Kenny Golladay, and so if I have to pick a least favorite Brian, for me, it's Kenny Golladay. But that's all I got for the Bry guy. He is the reigning defending champ, and I think he's made the playoffs every year so far, so I don't know. If he's a top 7 team this year, we'll see him again in them playoffs, Josh. So if you don't got anything else to say, we'll move on to your team, Mr. Squash.
Yeah.
All right, 12th overall pick, Josh. I feel like you get Devontae Adams a lot in this league, and
4th straight year, I think.
I say this year was no different. Devontae Adams falls all the way to 12. So what does that tell you about his move to Las Vegas? Excuse me. But yeah,
tells
Josh,
me a bunch of nerds have drafted in front of me don't know garbage.
I appreciate this team name, Josh. I was going to hate on it, but then I remember a team name of mine it was like 5 years ago. I've definitely changed my outlook on things, but what a former team name of mine was God Hates Jags. And so the Pack Lives Matter team name, I can't hate on it for being controversial, but you're towing a societal line there. A little controversy with the Pack Lives Matter, but I do love how topical it is.
Pack lives don't matter?
Josh, let's not start, okay? Moving on, though, to your grades, Josh. You got an A+ from Al, so I don't know. Obviously, I give, when I send out the draft board for other people to grade, I don't associate names to the team, so probably if I were Al, I would have tanked you. But Al gave you an A+ when he didn't know it was you. It was all anonymous. And then you got a B from the football guys. From your peers, Josh, you got a 6.75 average rank, and then that's best for 7th overall in the league. So just that last playoff spot for you. My favorite pick of yours was Michael Thomas. Again, that was probably a guy I was eyeing up, but I went pretty wide receiver heavy, so there's only so many wide receivers I can take, but I love that Michael Thomas pick for you. I think he's going to be a fantasy star yet again. And nay, Josh, I know you're not going to like this one. You're going to say I'm just hating him because of Packer. That's not it. It would be similar to your Keelan Cole or your Josh Gordon. The Dubs hype has gotten out of control. I'd say it's similar to the Dameon Pierce hype. I don't care where he's on the depth chart. I don't care what's going on. I don't think Dubs is going to be in your starting lineup very often. I don't think he's going to turn out to be anything special in fantasy. So nothing against him as a person. Obviously, he's putting highlights out there. People are talking highly of him. I don't think Romeo Dubs will be in your fantasy starting lineup very often. I know it's your 11th round pick, but I think you're going to cut him before you ever put him in your lineup. So that's why I won't like it. There you go.
Well, I can't cut him because Pack Lives Matter. But I do see what you're saying. He was my 5th wide receiver, but technically 4th for the first 6 weeks because I got DeAndre in there in the 8th round, and he's suspended for a little bit. But yeah, overall, were you done dissing my team?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, they're talking about my team. Overall, I actually was okay with my draft. As per usual, I usually go wide receiver. Last year, I went running back, tight end, which kind of explains my woes. Travis Etienne is my first running back. Maybe not the most bright spot on my roster, but I do like my middle value. My favorite pick was Ramondre Stevenson, just because I did get him in the 7th round, and he has an opportunity to be a solid running back there in New England. He's shown Billy B that he can hang on to the ball, which is something that Damian Harris cannot do apparently. So there's that potential. He could be a 3-down back for them, which I'd like a lot. My least favorite pick, Isaiah Spiller, who's no longer on a team, is kind of what I had written down. But if I were to go back and kind of look at it again, Brian Robinson, but I couldn't predict that he was going to get shot the very next day.
But Isaiah Spiller's still on the team, isn't he? It's just they signed Sony Michel? Or do you cut him from your fantasy team?
I cut him from my fantasy team,
okay.
And Greg Joseph. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Mike Gesicki, Robert Tonyan, because both of them are very evenly ranked. Probably should have just stuck with one and drafted a defense or something.
Sure. All right. Well, yeah, if that's all your thoughts on
Moving
your team,
on.
you weren't as doom and gloom as I. So, yeah, move us on to T here, pal.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, you mentioned to Jeremy or somebody about trading running backs for wide receivers. I've got Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins that are kind of sitting there like, hey, you know what? I'd like to try out some new scenery. But moving on to T's team, he took Stephon Diggs with the 13th overall pick. That's not bad. He got an A+ from Al. Football Guys gave him an A-. The peers gave him an average of 6, which was good for the 5th slot. My favorite pick was probably Zamir White. Kenyon Drake got cut shortly after our draft, or the day after our draft. And I think Zamir White is now kind of that second RB. Josh Jacobs is, he's reliable, but he doesn't have much flashes, kind of how I feel about him. So White might get a chance to actually play a lot more than people think. My least favorite pick was DK.
Touches. Sorry, pal. Didn't want to interrupt.
I forgot he was in Las Vegas too. But Metcalf in the 4th, not a big fan of that. Brandon Cooks, Terry McLaurin, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'd probably have over DK at this point just because of who's throwing the ball to him. That offensive line is garbage, and yeah, I've been fading Seattle since we started podcasting again. But at that point in time, he knew he wasn't going to get to pick for a while, and he wanted to go with that high upside target, I'm guessing. But yeah, so that was T's team. Gar, what do you have?
I love the Renfro pick. Another wide receiver I was definitely targeting. I think I had him circled, and I was like, all right, if he falls to me, I'm definitely taking Renfro with my next pick. T ended up taking him. I was like, son of a bitch. But love Renfro for T. I think that's a great PPR pick. I think there's going to be plenty to eat, even with Devontae Adams and Darren Waller in theory ahead of him in the pecking order. Renfro's still going to eat. His chemistry with Carr is just impeccable. So I think Renfro is still going to be a good fantasy asset to hold in fantasy leagues this year. So love that for T in the 6th. Hate the Moore pick. Sky Moore, I don't think is going to do anything this year. It seems like, I don't know. There's maybe Sky Moore emerges in Kansas City. I don't think he will. So I don't have a lot more to say than just I hate the Sky Moore pick. There probably could have been another higher upside guy available there to T. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of thoughts on T's team. I think Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon is a really, really good 2 picks there at the end of the second or end of the first, beginning of the second round. So I think T should be solidly carried by them.
Yeah, I had thought that I would get Devontae in the first and then have an opportunity to get Joe Mixon or DeAndre Swift after T and Jamie both went Diggs and Debo. I was like, oh, Jamie's going to take Mahomes, and then I'm going to have Joe Mixon or DeAndre Swift. Nope. Spoiler alert to the next picks.
All right. Well, yeah, speaking of, we're going to our last team here. Jamie, 14th overall pick, end of the first round. She gets that double tap and then sits for a while. Deebo Samuel was her first overall pick, and then DeAndre Swift right after that. Overall, she had matching grades from both Al and the football guys. Both gave Jamie a B+, which is better than what her in-league peers thought of her. Josh, she had a 12.5 overall average rank from the peer rankings, which was only good for last in the league. Wasn't good for anything. So everyone fading Jamie. Jamie tends to surprise people. So I think, the only year I think Jamie's done really, really poorly is when I think Laura drafted her team. So Jamie usually surprises people. Jamie's usually in the playoffs. So I like Jamie. I like her team. I don't know that that's a fair ranking, but that's what her in-league peers thought of her. My yays and nays for Jamie's team: James Robinson, with all the hate we're giving Travis Etienne, that means someone else has got to eat up touches, eat up fantasy points in that Jaguars backfield. I think James Robinson, and what is this, the beginning of the 8th round? Yeah, beginning of the 8th round, I think that's great value. Certainly, if James Robinson would have made it back to me in the 8th round, I would have definitely taken him over Elijah Moore, but unfortunately he did not. And for Jamie, I've just been fading Gabe Davis all offseason. I just don't believe in Gabe Davis. There's a lot of hype. I'd argue he's probably the most controversial player in fantasy this year, just for how polarizing he is. I'm fading Gabe Davis, and for that, I will have to fade Gabe Davis for Jamie. And that's just how I feel. How do you feel about Jamie's team, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the ones that ranked her near the bottom of the pecking order. Sorry, Jamie, love you. I did like Mike Williams pick in the 3rd. Mike Williams in the 3rd at that turn there. Not a bad pick considering that's a high-powered offense. And he balled out last year for him, so that's decent for a wide receiver too. My least favorite picks were kind of the strategies that she had going. I know she's a doctor and she was doing doctoring things, but she took 2 quarterbacks in the first 9 rounds. She has 2 tight ends and 2 kickers. We only get 5 bench spots, and 3 of them are taken by backups that won't ever see the starting lineup. So those are kind of my big things. My biggest gripe, though, was she took Tyler Bass in the last round, which is her 2nd kicker, and that's who I was going to take. So I was forced to take Greg Joseph, who's no longer on my team. But, I mean, overall, I do like that James Robinson pick. I do think that even though he's coming off that Achilles, he's going to have opportunities near the goal line. But yeah, I do like the DeAndre Swift as well for her starting running back, because he was a solid running back before he got hurt last year. But yeah, overall, that's the draft. Guard, anything stick out to you after we went through all the teams? Anything that you wanted to touch the base on, go over?
No, I mean, I've talked about it before. I was just surprised. Brian took Josh Allen in the 2nd round, which I think is fine. I would have definitely considered Josh Allen in the 2nd had he made it back to the 2-8 where I was picking, but I just thought quarterbacks would go a lot earlier than they did. Josh Allen in the 2nd, and then not another quarterback until you took Herbert in the 4th. So I was just surprised by that. And then we didn't touch on, I know we went team names for everyone else, so we didn't talk about T or Jamie's team names because they haven't updated them. T is still That's Hilarious, and Jamie's still Obi-Wan Mahomey. Jamie almost always puts out a fire team name, so Jamie, I know you're capable of more. Jesse, if you hear this, shame your sister into picking a better team name, or Hammer if you listen back, or Jamie if you listen back. Let's get Jamie to get she's capable of a good team name, so I want to see it. But other than that, no, I think it was a good draft. I think I'm going to be disappointed in my team. If anyone is ever desperate for a wide receiver, please trade me a running back. Or Nikita, please trade me Kirk Cousins. All right, that's all I got. As far as the draft,
She'll give you Kirk
stuff.
Cousins for Justin Jefferson.
I'm sure she would. She does have the Thielen Cousins stack, but I mean with Lamar Jackson, she's never going to pay Cousins. I know she's a low transaction player, but come on, Nikita, we can work something out. Give me that Kirk Cousins.
I've made more transactions this year already than she made the entire last season.
Josh, you're a fucking animal, though. That's why. But that's all we got for the
My
draft
goal is for
grades.
triple digits.
We want to end this in under an hour. We've just got a couple minutes to spare still. Just triple-digit transactions, that'd be fucking insane. But I do want to shout out, I'm not going to send out any links to any people, but Bradley is, I should say Bradley, I'm helping run it, but we're doing a guillotine league this year. Al's in it. I know Brian's not in it. Jesse's in it. Josh is in it. Walters, I think Bradley invited you. You probably said you're out, which is fine. But to other people who will listen, we're starting up a guillotine league. So if you're interested, reach out to Brad or I. We're trying to not over invite, so then you have people who are excluded. So we're trying to be send out the invites as spots become available. But please, if you're interested in a guillotine league, it's going to be a pseudo pod play along. Like this is Brad's dream, so I definitely want Brad's branding all over it. But it's going to be a pseudo pod play along. I got Eric's in there, so Eric's can participate. We're still doing the DFS hood pod play along as well. We probably won't have a lot of entrants because I know people are going to be saturated with fantasy football stuff to do. But I think there's 5 people signed up for the DFS thing. I'm one of them. Pretty sure Brian's in there. So if you want to come play along again, we're going to do the top 10 scores. I know 2 years ago we did, the full season long. Last year we just did the top 5 scores to always keep it just a little bit fresh. This year for the FanDuel DFS contest, the hood pod play along, we're going to do the top 10 scores. And so there's 18, regular season weeks. You have 18 chances to get 10 really good scores. And so it makes it, you can't just get lucky a couple times, is I guess what it comes down to.
Join week 8.
Yeah. But so if you're interested in the guillotine league, reach out to Brad or I. The link for the DFS thing is already in the Discord. That's only $10. I know Elena played last year, Jesse. So if Elena wants to play again, I think she was in the top 3 at least for a while. I don't remember if she actually ended up winning money, but I know Elena was up there for a while at least. So if you want to play that, it's just $10. Venmo me and join the FanDuel link in the Discord in the announcements channel. Josh, do you have anything else for the folks?
Just want to put a I don't know what they're officially called, but put out a hit, not a hit, but put out a warning for those Antonio Gibson owners out there. Probably specifically in dynasty leagues, but Brian Robinson, who was unfortunately shot Sunday twice, once in the glute and once in the knee. Sounds like he's going to make a recovery and play again, so it sucks for those of you who actually contributed to that GoFundMe for him to get shot by those kids.
What's wrong with you?
Did you not? He was announced the starter, and an hour later he gets shot twice. Come on now. Antonio Gibson had a GoFundMe, asked for his followers to just do it. So, but no, in all honesty, it sucks that happened to him. But if he was back in the building yesterday, I believe, and he brought Oreos for the running back room because it was his turn to bring treats. So it's kind of funny video. If you haven't seen it, go watch it.
All right, next week we'll be back again. Is Wednesday still work for you next week, Josh?
Indubitably.
All right, Wednesday is going to be our big fantasy preview. We'll be just one day away from fantasy, and then we'll be right back into our regular season. But next week is our big fantasy preview. We'll be doing our year-long studs and duds, a bunch of fantasy predictions. We do have a hot takes channel now in the chat, so if you'd like to throw some fantasy hot takes out there for next week, we would love to go over those. I'm going to try and keep the channels to a minimum this year, like the different chat channels, because I think last year, we tried to keep it down, but I just thought it was too many. So we'll keep memes, we'll keep the general chat, we'll keep the Hidden Oak specific one for the side bets and stuff, but otherwise I'm going to try and keep it as few channels as possible. So we love all the people who contribute. I think there's 5 people in the audience right now. That's awesome. We love people who listen live, and we love the people who listen back later. So thanks for continuing to support us. We will give you more information once we have it on what the 2 pods a week is going to look like. Probably one Tuesday, Wednesday, and then one, Friday, Saturday, something like that. A preview and then a review. So thank you everyone for listening so much. We appreciate you. We love you. And it's going to be a great football season. Get your fantasy football predictions in the hot takes chat or in the general chat, and we'll go over those next week. Goodbye, everybody. Love you.
Go Packers.
Yeah. Wes Walters.
What up?
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. I'm gonna stop recording my podcast now, but we can chat if you like.
Yeah, sure.
What? Are you just was the hand raised just again a flame? You have no interest in chatting?
No, I was actually hoping to ask Josh if he was upset that an NFL quarterback went on Joe Rogan's podcast